You know, this validates what others have said. There's going to be volatility in the price. This gives you a bit of a snapshot of what the industry is. I mean, you guys probably know this just as well as I do. But the critical thing, and Max talked about it, certainly the processed fruit and veg component of the business is the one that has been most impacted by private label, and that is going to continue. That is definitely going to continue. I have a very different approach to where this business's thinking was. I would rather manufacture the private label than let it come in from somewhere else, because we need scale. We have a legacy infrastructure that needs to run, you know, as much as it possibly can. So we are actively talking to Coles and Woolworths about leveraging our infrastructure, not only to do what we do, but also to leverage our infrastructure to do other things that they are looking to put under private label. So we are going to leverage our infrastructure because I would rather come to Australia, because it gives me a greater opportunity to have a different discussion with Coles and Woolworths versus being marginalised in a corner as a single brand. Exchange rate has obviously had a huge impact on our business. For us to be able to compete, say, with China, we would have to improve productivity 10% year on year. And as I said before, that's actually been the opposite. It's had a huge impact on economies of scale. That's the biggest issue that we have. At one point in time, the Shepparton facility was the third largest fruit processor in the world in terms of scale and infrastructure, and 4 kilometres down the road was the 5th largest. And we're just about ready to close the 5th largest. So it gives you a sense that these are businesses that have invested an enormous amount of money over time to operate in a 4 or 5 month season just to be able to process fresh. But what's that led to is their scale businesses, and as we've lost the scale, the competitiveness has completely gone out the window. Linked to the productivity, which I talked about before. And the other thing that's happened, certainly in the last 10 years, which I alluded to before around the innovation space, is capital investments have certainly dwindled away just to managing the normal investments that you need to keep the factory running, and that's further exacerbated the problem, which has led to a loss of competitive advantage. So we're at a perfect storm. This is no new news. We've got high input costs, pressure on domestic returns, exposed to unfair import competition. You know, I'm sure all of you know we have all of these labelling laws. We have all of these imposts that our competitors don't have. The exchange rate, and I know that Senator Lugwood talked about the National Food Plan. It's probably long overdue as an industry, and Barry talked about how we've over-indexed on supporting the car industry. I completely endorse that. If we had spent the same amount of time and effort on food, a national food plan, we'd probably be in a different place today. So our industry faces threats and opportunities, the disappearance of the Australian food processing industry, and also we sit in a world of opportunity. As everyone who has joined my team certainly in the last 12 to 18 months, and pardon the French, you will go through an oh shit moment. Everyone will go through an oh shit moment. What have I let myself in for? And as I found out, the chair had an opportunity to be the CEO of SPCA 20 years ago and decided not to. It's probably smarter than I am. But once you get through that oh shit moment, you get to, we have opportunities, both domestically and from an export point of view. So that's our challenge, is to get the balance right. Doing nothing is not an option, absolutely not an option. But the new reality needs a coherent approach. We are going to do what we are going to do because we need to do that for our own business, but our success the success of this industry can't be done by just SPC. It requires government, and we have had very constructive conversations, certainly with the Victorian government, and now of late the federal government. It requires a consistent and aligned approach with unions. We need to have the growers involved. We die, they die, they die, we die. We don't have an industry if they go away. So the new reality is going to require a very, very different approach than me as the head of SPCA just doing it on my own. I need to do what I need to do, but we need to do it collectively. So this leads to, you know, one of the core components of what we are doing is changing the way we deal with all parties up and down the value chain in terms of the collaborating and having the right sort of conversations to move the agenda. And I'll quickly go through these because I've been given the buzzer. We need to create a level playing field. I've already talked about, you know, we need to invest. If we don't invest, we don't have the ability to access new processing technologies. So we need to get back to the accelerated depreciation for companies like ourselves. We need to get rid of imposts like the abolition of the state payroll taxes, restore the right balance of investment in R&D. I think it's too much R at the moment and less D. We need to have consistent trade measures with the WTO. Ongoing investment in infrastructure, which was said once before already, and provide a more flexible labour market to meet seasonal demands. In our world, during season, a Sunday is like a Friday. Yeah, we shouldn't have the impost for a Sunday during season. Improve productivity. This is about scale. I think we're now at a stage where the government needs to encourage consolidation, certainly in the manufacturing space, and be less concerned about the fact that you might end up with an oligopoly. We need to get scale. Most of our industries are all about scale. We need to have the ability to invest in technologies to drive innovation. I'm going to go faster. This is where the opportunity is. If we can get our own house right, there is the opportunity to leverage Brand Australia. I know it's been tried previously with Supermarket Asia, but there wasn't enough investment. It wasn't focused enough. This is an opportunity for us in the medium term. And, you know, I go back to the original comment about the transformational partnerships. We need to break the current paradigms of how we work as organisations, as industries. And the key words for me are cooperation, collaboration, and working through complex interdependencies. And that all links nicely into ultimately getting to a healthy Australian fruit and veg processing industry. It covers off the Build Australia, transformational partnerships, creating a level playing field, productivity improvements. We are only going to do this if we do it together. SPC Ardmona will do what it needs to do for its own business, but it's only going to get us so far. We have to do this collectively. Thanks for listening.